This podcast is brought to you by Penji. Penji is a creative subscription service that gives you access to pre-vetted, agency-trained creatives from all over the world. From graphic design to illustrations to social media management and web development, it's all included for one monthly price. It's time to say goodbye to the hassle of searching for top-notch creative talent. With Penji, you get quality and consistency delivered right to your inbox every day, carefully crafted for you by humans. So meet your new creative team today. Head over to penji.co for more and enter the coupon code located within the podcast show notes.
Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to the First 100 podcast. This is where we discuss and explore the journey of entrepreneurs, business owners, agency leaders as they share with us the strategies and the challenges or triumphs that have led them to secure those first 100 followers, first 100 customers. Today, I am joined with a very special guest. Her name is Urina Harrell. Hi, Urina. How are you?
Hi, everyone. So great to be on today.
Very excited to have you on the show today. So before we get started, just so that people know who you are, whoever's listening that's not familiar, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, so my name is Urina Harrell. I own a company called Vox Pop Branding, LLC. We are a full-service digital marketing agency. We have a traditional arm, and then we also have a more subscription-based arm for our small business folks who can't quite afford traditional agency services yet. And then what makes us really interesting and different is that every single one of our campaigns is either positive impact messaging focused or social impact messaging focused. So people get really confused. They're like, what type of marketing do you do? What industry are you in? I'm like, well, we don't segment by industry or vertical. We segment by your willingness to do social impact or positive impact messaging. So whether you sell perfume or you're in foundation, we can work with you if you make that commitment with us.
That's very interesting. I think I haven't heard from that kind of like social awareness type of spin. I've heard a lot of we talked to a lot of digital marketing agencies specifically, but we haven't spoken to someone with this twist.
Yeah, one of the best pieces of advice my mother ever gave me was that you don't have to figure out what you want to do first. Figure out what you want to do forever. You figure out what you want to do first. And the other thing is to create the world you want to live in. And when I looked at the marketing space, I've always been a person who lives in the plurals. So I want to do the ands. I don't like to pick and choose. And I didn't like the categories that were available. And I was like, well, what if I only want to work with people who want to make this type of impact, whether they're selling jeans or if they're a nonprofit? And I said, I can just create it. And 11 years later, it's still going. So, we're here.
Yeah. So I'm curious as to how that sort of started, because it is a very sort of segmented part of the marketing space, right? So you probably have to filter a lot of people in order to get the right clients. How were you able to secure that, at the beginning to get the right kind of customer that you were trying to get?
Mm. I said a lot of no's to really great opportunities. I think when you first start, you kind of have the same funnel as everybody else, right? The same way that an agency who maybe doesn't want to work with small businesses or nonprofits with less than 10 employees, they come in through that lead gen system, they talk to you and you're asking them questions just as much as they're asking you questions. And they're realizing, oh, you don't have at least 10 employees, you're probably not a good fit for us. We do the same thing, right? So when we get those leads come in and we're talking, we mention, we can be really effective. And we have some strategies to do so, but our approach is very particular. Would you be willing to, as far as any engagements you do with us, I don't know if you're going to work with another agency for other stuff. This is the commitment we make, and this is the type of standard we like. And here's why. Here's the long-term reasons why, which could be profitability. It could be reducing the amount of poor or terrible PR instances that the company has to bounce back from. It could be the fact that when a company does really good work or they're more social impact or positive impact focused, their customers feel better about them and want to stay longer, and they may choose to keep that loyalty over maybe a competitor just because, yeah, that's $2 cheaper, but this brand has this level of integrity and I identify with that. So we kind of make the business case to do it, even if they weren't initially thinking about it, and they say yes or no. and we go from there. So it's the same thing. It's just, I think, instead of the category being these hard demographic numbers or attributes, it's more about ethically what they're willing to do and tolerate.
Yeah. So, when it comes to like lead gen in and of itself, what do you think has been like the tool that has helped you most with this? Has it been, or like what sales funnel do you think you've been able to hone in that has helped you with it? Or do you think it's just, anything and then you filter from there?
Yeah, I would say once we got started, word of mouth, and it's still word of mouth, is just our strongest system. I think when you talk about certain industries, it's the difference between if you go into a store, right, and you're thinking about buying a TV, and the salesperson is saying, "Buy this TV," and you're like, I don't know, I'm still thinking about it. Versus if somebody you happen to run into in the store says, "Oh, I have that TV," and they're like, "Oh, you do? Do you like it?" And they're asking questions because you have that trust and rapport with that person. Um, they're just more likely to convert faster. And I found that, we treat our clients really amazing, and they are our best marketers. And truthfully, we just spend so much more time on our clients marketing that we don't spend a lot on our own. I do think that vehicles like word of mouth, podcasts are like this are actually really phenomenal as well. We've gotten some leads from here. And I say the other channel that is more of LinkedIn, we get some business from. But what I'll say is the way we use it is just a lot of amplifying our clients' wins, which then people get curious about why these clients keep winning. We want to talk to us. So I think it's still kind of creating our own word of mouth, but more through celebrating the folks in our ecosystem.
That's interesting. Yeah. So I think word of mouth is sort of a very overlooked form of marketing because like people are always trying to do like, the modern thing with like paid ads and
Yeah.
SEO and all of these like cool things that are coming out, but they forget what it's like to actually just be present in a community.
And community is so powerful. I think we don't give it credit. I think that's why social media is powerful, right? Social
Uh-huh.
media created so many more channels for folks to give their own word of mouth. That's why influencers got popular. That's why micro influencers are actually even more impactful than sometimes the bigger influencers because they have that like really trusted community. And when they say something, it has more of a word of mouth at the same time. Bless you.
So actually, that's
Listen, it's the season.
mute make
It's the season, no stress. Listen, but 100%, I think word of mouth is so incredibly important. And then from a content perspective, things like tools like video, etc., make it really easy to upscale what word of mouth is now. I think now that we have the digital and tech age, word of mouth used to be that scenario in the story that we just talked about,
yeah.
where you come across and you communicate directly to somebody. But now word of mouth can be a recorded video that's sitting on the website and they see somebody that's familiar to them, that they trust their expertise or their business in. And that's what actually converts them, even if they
Yeah.
never personally stop and do it.
Well, I do that when it comes to like purchasing product and using services, whatever kind of thing that I'm going to do online. Like my first sort of my knee jerk reaction is to like look for reviews and look for reviews from someone that I think is giving me a review that I'm going to trust. Right. And then from that point forward, I choose to purchase this product or this service when I'm doing like online shopping.
100%. So fun fact, this is like really random, and I guess it relates to like how I got here. Um, while I was building my agency, I was headhunted by a big retailer. I won't give them free advertising, but it's a very big retailer. Everybody knows this retailer. Every neighborhood corner, I promise. And they asked me to be a buyer for them. And I was like, you know what? I have some small e-commerce brands. Like I would love to, learn more about what this looks like. So I kept my agency, hired somebody to help take care of 90% of my roles. And then I went and worked full time as a buyer for this big retailer. Reviews, the power of reviews, to your point. One review can increase conversion rate by 10%. That doesn't seem like a lot. It's a lot. 10 reviews, that bumps up to 30 or 40%. So that means that if you have 100 people coming to your page and not buying, putting one review up means 10 of those folks could buy. Putting 10 reviews up means 30 to 40% of those 30 to 40 people landing on that page are now buying, right? And then once you get into the hundreds and thousands, it doesn't increase as much, but you get like 42%, 43%, up until like 60 or 70%, just based on having nothing else is changing, just reviews. So we spent so much time trying to get reviews, which is kind of a, a version of word of mouth, to get people to convert. And I just was like, wow, people are so powerful. Like,
Yeah.
what we have to say is so powerful. A brand can say it a million times, but another person says it and you're like, yep, that's it.
Yeah,
Sold.
true. Because I guess like a brand is trying to sell themselves, like obviously, and it's not a bad thing because that's what brands do. But as a customer, you're more concerned with like, okay, well, what you're saying, is it actually true? Or is it just like you know, decorating words to make it seem like it's cool?
Another phenomenon that which I think what you'll find interesting is we have actually won clients because we told them no. So we asked them like, hey, are you willing to do like this type of messaging? This is what the standard we have. That doesn't mean you won't be profitable. We'll track you, have your metrics, but like you have to commit to this. They'll say no. And then we'll say no. Okay, well, thank you so much for your time. I don't think this is going to work out. And they're like, wait, what? Did you just say no to?
Well, a client, right?
And then they in turn will say, well, we'll try it. And it's because we stood our ground and was like, no, we're not going to do this. We have won clients say with that no from us. And what I realized is that sometimes like even people don't want to miss out and then they get more curious. So even standing your ground and saying no or being truthful to your point about like a business wants to sell, sometimes telling folks that you're not a good fit is actually the thing that makes them want to work with you more because they now see honesty and integrity in whatever you're presenting.
Yeah, and I feel like nowadays it's even more demanded than before. Like I think before customers were a lot less. I don't want to say they were not smart. I but I kind of am, I guess. But I just feel like people were less aware of marketing strategies and things like that. So now you have like potential clients who are a lot more aware of you trying to sell them something, which makes in turn a business like demands for them to also be smarter about how they are approaching
Yeah.
customers or potential clients, right?
I think a good reframe of that is customers are now more educated. And not saying they
Yeah.
weren't smart before, but they're more educated as to their
You're
power.
you're saying it a lot better than
No, but they now know that they have more power. I think because of technology, we now know that, yeah, like before it was, we're stricken to our geographic location. So there was only so much, like, there's only so many nail shops in this specific town that I could choose from. So I can only demand so much because I'm going to run out of options soon. But now it's like, well, there's about 100,000 nail shops that I can choose from if I don't like what's going on here. And I now know I have more power and more options. And I can be more demanding. I can be more honest about what I actually want versus like what I'm taking just because this what seems available.
Yeah, that's true. Technology, man. It's incredible, which I wanted to ask you this question because I think your business is very interesting with like this social venture. What has been like the biggest challenge that you think you've had to face in this whole journey? And how have you been able to overcome it? Or do you think that's still like a work in progress of trying to figure it out?
Yeah, so I feel like marketing is one of those industries that everybody feels like they either can do or they feel like they have the expertise. But that also means that a lot of my clients or potential customers come across really shady folks. They come across people who overpromise and underdeliver. They come across people who don't actually know what they're doing, or they relied on personal experiences for growth, but have never tried that out for somebody else, right? So maybe you've acquired 300,000 followers, but and you think that you can, because you've done it yourself, that you can do it for anybody, but you realize that the experience is different when it's a really boring business or, something that's not as attractive as you may be. And that has been, I think, the challenge is coming across those folks and then having to say, no, you still need this help. We can kind of get you across the finish line, but they've had that experiences. So it's almost building trust when you didn't break your trust is extremely challenging, right? Like you're paying for other people's mistakes.
It's like dating someone with commitment issues.
It's literally dating somebody with commitment issues, and she has the issue. And you're like, but I didn't do it. And it's funny because I was watching like a dating episode, whatever, like on social, and somebody was like, "Let me mess," right? Like, let me move. But we don't want, like, if you had your heart broken, I know this is a very like relationship specific version example, but I think it's applicable and people can.
It relates.
Yeah. If you had, sorry for the drop, if you had your heart broken, you don't want to wait and allow it just to open up so the next person can break your heart
In a different way.
in a different way. So the same thing in business. You don't want to,
It's
like,
true.
if you have this terrible experience, you're not going to just open back up and be like, now you can make the mistake too. So to answer your question, that has been our biggest struggle. And that also affects everything else, right? It affects conversion rates. It affects our own ROI because we spend so much time building trust back. Um, and then, a lot of unsavory things are so easily accessible. So it's like you make an ounce of progress and they go try out some freebie course and then you're back to zero again.
Yeah. I know, it's insane, and I do think that it relates so much to, like, the relationship stuff because I was listening to that, and I feel like it's my friend giving me advice about dating. It's like the same concept of trying to trust someone and being worried that, that you're gonna have the same experience or even worse. And, anybody, like, whether it's a business or if it's a personal experience, doesn't wanna deal with, like, the backlash or whatever consequences are gonna come from the bad experience if you've already had one prior.
100%. And then let's think about it in a more futuristic sense, right? So you've had this bad experience. Now you're closed off. Right now we're still using the relationship metaphor, but it's perfect, right? But your closed off tendencies means that you're also missing out on how beautiful certain things can be, how great that potential relationship could be because you're so like
Yeah.
bubbled. So a lot of times businesses are actually capping their progress because they're afraid of going backwards, but now they're not also able to experience all the big opportunities that exist in the growth and a little bit of like taking the risk. Um, so it's just, on both ends, so challenging.
Yeah, yeah, no, I completely get it. I think, like, it's just a journey. I've talked to a lot of business owners who struggle with a lot with clients. Like, they always tell me, like, like, having customers, having clients is difficult because you have to build a relationship and, you have to, like, build a relationship that is mutually beneficial for them and yourself. And a lot of times, sort of finding that middle ground can be really complicated because, of, like, different issues. So, like, it totally makes sense. And I think it's one of the biggest misconceptions that a lot of people have when they start to, you know, entrepreneurship, I guess. What do you think are some of those misconceptions that you've noticed whenever it's like a sort of like a startup or like a smaller business that's just kind of trying to grow and are clearly very new?
Yeah, one of them is, and this is like almost a marketing pitch at the same time, but it's just true. People think build it and they will come. So people focus just on the product, just on the service, which I think that's incredibly important. And I'm not saying to have a terrible product or service, but they focus so much on it and then nobody knows about it. They're the best kept secret. So they spend all this energy on it, having this amazing thing that nobody ever hears about. And then they get upset when they see something that doesn't have the same quality. And everybody has it. It's literally everywhere, right? Because somebody spent the time and investment to tell folks about this thing, even if it was like half baked. And then they're complaining, they're like, well, my product is so much better. And I don't get the play. I don't get the exposure. I'm not growing that fast. Well, people don't know about you and nobody can buy something they don't know about. You can't support a cause you don't know exists. Even when
Yeah.
they're the best artists in the world, like I know some of the best singers are underground, right? They're not popular, they're not mainstream, but the difference in between this super high quality, and I don't want to say high quality singer, but this singer who's kind of like, they're okay in talent versus someone who you're just blown away in a cafe and it's this podunk city is how many people know.
Yeah.
First thing. I think another thing is building with scale in mind. I think sometimes we dream too small and it actually cost us. When I first started my agency, I'll give you an example. I picked a accounting software that, well, I mean, it really was just made for somebody who was like a self-employed freelancer. Um, and within 8 months, I had grown that software, and I literally could not transfer all the things that I had in this version of the software over to what I needed as it was growing. And it cost me a lot of time and energy and confusion, because then I'm putting it off because I'm like, I don't know how to migrate this stuff. I just have to keep chugging along. And then there was tax things I had to address later because I never integrated right. That example that was specific to like accounting, but it's the same thing when a business is thinking about their marketing or thinking about this or thinking about that. We get so scared when we finally take the leap that we look and dream a little too small. Dream big and just know I need to scale it back for now, but I know that in 2 years I might grow to this. So I need to, as I'm considering softwares or opportunities or who I'm working with, I'm
And
considering what it looks like to grow up, right?
yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest things that handicaps our entrepreneurs. And it handicaps them with funding opportunities, it handicaps them with growth. It actually starts to mess up their customer experience because they didn't anticipate, having 100 customers within the first year, and now they're breaking their own system and customers are having a bad experience because they didn't figure out that one day I might get this big or bigger.
Well, I guess people are scared of losing money or like going bankrupt. There's so many horror stories of people starting businesses and then they're just like failures. So I guess like everyone's always trying to tread lightly, going on the careful side, and then they don't realize that it's inadvertently turning into self-sabotage, right?
And it doesn't have, and here's the thing I think people should know about, like, you don't have to start, the price point doesn't have to be that you're already there. It needs to be like, okay, as I'm exploring certain softwares or certain people who I want to work with, what are the opportunities for growth, right? Um, what does it look like? Do I have opportunities to move up with this vendor as I grow to this level, and this level? Or can they really only handle up to 20 people? If they can only handle up to 20 people, then maybe I need to look for somebody who has a lower offering for me, but has room to scale. And I think that is what people need to negotiate earlier. And don't overspend for sure, but definitely like consider, if something big happened in the next 6 months, what would I do? Can I work with these people, or who's my backup plan if I can't? Like, what's the transition then? I think that needs to be kind of considered.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess like when you're starting, you don't know a lot of these things. So people are just kind of like blindly doing it.
I would also say, if you think about working with a vendor or somebody, and I'm just saying vendor, software, whatever, who doesn't have growth built into their model for their customers or clients, what does that say about the brand's mission or target, right? So, for example, we have tiers where if you're really small and you don't have a big budget, we start really low with you. But then we have these, as you grow, you go here, here, here. And that's because our goal with our clients is for them to grow. And they're going to need more stuff because they're growing, right? So then the tiers or the pricing should graduate with them. And our goal is to take the customer through this customer journey of like, you started with us here, or maybe you started with us at level B, but we're trying to get you to where you're like enterprise. That's our goal for you. If you're working with businesses who don't have that range, to me, I'm kind of like, does the business not have that target of growth or help or support for their own clients?
Yeah.
Or are they just on a burn and churn model and get what they can while they can, which is not a sustainable model, because the Pareto principle says it's cheaper to keep customers. Like 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your customers, right? And those are the ones who you're keeping, nurturing through. So if you're not having some type of focus on that, what are we doing, right? Are we really helping that customer in whatever you're doing? Or is it, like I said, a burn and churn, and you're not worried about the customer relationship that we just talked about a little bit ago?
In theory, the customer should also be able to reach that place where they can afford higher pricing because they're also making more money, right?
Because they're growing.
Yeah.
Their
So
needs
it's
should
not like,
grow as they grow, right?
yeah, so it's not like you're like, "Oh, I'm just gonna take all of your money." It's like, "Oh, no, it's kinda like when you have a low salary and you're living in an ugly place, and then the more money you make, you're obviously not gonna wanna live in the dingy apartment that you were at before."
But what they need, like it should be an ecosystem of growth And if you're not working with people who are facilitating or nurturing your ecosystem of growth, then something's not right. Right. I think these are like the little things that over time, like after a decade in business, you're like, even if that's not my thing, right? If I don't necessarily need that, if I'm recommending my customer or client to go support you, I want to see that they're taking care of them. Like I want to see that there's these opportunities for improvement because I don't have any kids. And it's a joke that my mom has, but she's like, your business is your baby. And it is. Like I care for it like a baby and it's really important to me. But a business owner, I understand that every other business owner kind of has the same, like, this is my baby, this is my child. And I need it to be cared for. So why would you not, the way we vet like daycare systems and growth and what are they learning? What's going to be, are they going to be better after they leave this? Or is it just going to be like leveled out and maintained? Should be considered for other avenues.
Yeah, for sure. No, it is always something that needs to be considered. I think people just overlook it. Um, Urina, it's been great having you today on the show. We've had such a great conversation. I think I've never really spoken to someone that prioritizes social awareness into their own marketing strategies and the clients that they work with. Obviously, a lot of business do, but yours is kind of like at the forefront. So I think that was very interesting. And it's been great talking to you. Thank you so much for doing this.
This was amazing. Thank you so much. And I'm excited to see more folks and listen as you do more first 100 interviews.
Yes, I wanted to actually give you the space to give us your info for anybody that is interested in working with you, learning more about you, or who just wants awareness. Floor is yours to, shamelessly promote yourself.
Thank you so much. So we are Vox Pop Branding. That's www.voxpopbranding.com. And if you visit there, you can find us on all our socials. We're on LinkedIn, Instagram. We're starting to integrate with TikTok more. That's you said the platform. But yeah, feel free to reach out to us if you have questions or want to learn more. You can reach out at info@voxpopbranding.com. And if you email us and you say Penji or DM us and say Penji, we'll give you a special free consultation and also a free offering for your first few months. So hopefully you reach out to us, and I would love to learn more about more folks who integrate with Penji and do work.
Awesome. Yeah, very exciting. I will be adding those links to the description of the video for the people that are watching, and for those listening, go to the video, get the things. So that anybody who's interested in working with you can go ahead and find you and talk to you. Thank you so much for doing this. It was great having you. And everybody else, I will see you on the next episode.
Thank you, Daniela.
Thank you. Goodbye.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest. And to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend and, of course, subscribe.